right, if you don't mind, please take your seats. Can we first just stand here? Can we take 1 second and truly a beautiful piece of work. I'm so honored that I know you.
Oh my God.
I second that emotion.
Oh.
It's
But
gorgeous.
honestly, like, I know Love Fest, here it comes. Mark went the extra mile. Like, it's true on the receiving end to know that you know to invite me in to work with your company. Killed it last night, just saying. And then saying, hey, like I remember almost a year ago saying, hey, there's an opportunity to try to apply for some stuff and like your film and what are you working on and how do we do this and these kids and it was his vision. And for me to then say, okay, well, let's figure this out and so you made this happen and it included me in such a significant way. And if anybody knows here how much Chicago means to me, it's like a lot.
Yeah.
So to then have this happen here and be able to talk to everybody, it's like, thank you, Mark. Like, real thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm way more comfortable talking about others. So, here's the fun part. So we just got to see this amazing piece of work that is rich and has so much information in it. And now we get to delve a little deeper into information about the film as well as Lisa's own story. And I am so honored that to facilitate this, to lead this discussion, we are incredibly lucky to be partnering with Chicago Dance History Project. If you were at our show Saturday, you saw that they were our honorees this year at our gala, and I spoke effusively and frankly very from the heart about what Chicago Dance History Project means to Chicago dance, myself, tap dance, and to get to introduce not just CDHP, but another person that I've come to like be very like kind of proud that I get to call a friend, just one of the kindest, most amazing people you could ask to know, Michael McStraw.
Mike, the new
Hello, you. Do we need microphones?
stay on the seat.
No.
Stay right there.
Do we need that for you, Sean?
Okay, great.
No. Then
Yeah,
great. Then we don't have to deal with props. Yeah.
Props.
Props. Oh my gosh. Wow. Here we are. So for those of you who do not know about the Chicago Dance History Project, we are a 9-year-old organization and we investigate, document, preserve, and promote the histories, the oral histories of Chicago dance. And when we say dance in Chicago, we mean the broadest possible definition of that word. It's just not theatrical concert dance, but we're beginning to really expand our definition to look at Chicago footwork, to look at breaking, to look at traditional Chinese dance as examples. And this is an extraordinary time to be sitting here with you and to hear everything in this film about the need and the necessity of preserving history. Because if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. Right? And so that's what my organization does. And this is Sean Rafferty over here on our digital media production manager and our videographer. And what we do is we have several services that we provide to our community free of charge. We fundraise so that we can offer all of our services free. We have a wonderful partnership with the Newberry Library. Everything that we record goes to be part of the Midwest Dance Collection, which is made up of 100 separate smaller collections, and the CDHP, Chicago Dance History Project archives, are just one of those 100. So we are building the story of Chicago dance in all of its manifestations. That's what we do. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. So a little housekeeping. We're gonna chat. We're gonna talk about the film. We're gonna talk about you. And we're going to pivot to talk about Chicago and your presence in Chicago. And after we have gone through a series of questions, we're going to open it up for all of your questions. So that's the lay of the land. We ready?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. This is a part where I usually read a bio. But we already know a lot about you from the film and from what Mark said. Couple questions. Number one, what was it like looking at that on the big screen? And then secondly, what has not been revealed about you that we should know about you as we launch into this conversation?
Well, it's surreal. The short of it is very surreal. It's humbling, and I'm really very grateful. Because especially when this was made, and I know we'll talk more about the making of it, etc., it was really in the throes of the pandemic. So when it got released, it was into digital abyss. And so for about a year of off and on screenings, they were all digital. And so I would get like a 3 a.m. text from whoever it would be saying, "Oh my gosh, I just watched your film." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Or, I'm cooking dinner for the family, and then I just saw your film, like, "Oh, I hope you liked it." So I didn't get this experience. So it's been very few times that I've been able to see it with people. And I'm glad I've had some practice, because it's a whole thing. It's very exposing. This is the first time seeing it in an actual movie theater, and that is like, wow, I guess we really did make a film. You made it official.
Yeah, that's what the thing is up here. It's a film.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, I had to get popcorn, so. Yes, and a big part of my story that I wanted, of course, to add more, and it's just the way that the story was shaping. To answer your question about what I'd like to augment from the film, which we'll get to, is just how much Chicago is a part of my story. I know I made mention of it, but it really is so deep. So I look forward to that part. And since then, I did move back to New York, which was a whole other reverse migration.
I wasn't aware of that. Wow.
Yeah.
Reverse. It's like you're playing Uno,
For real. Yeah. So I moved back in 2023. So I was in Alberta, in Calgary for 3 years. This birthed, and then I did move back for various reasons, and since then it's been pretty wild. So I am an artist in residence at Louis Armstrong's actual house and museum.
Wow.
In Corona, Queens, and just was able to perform the work that I got from there. Well, the unexciting thing is I was able to bring the story of the Crump twins to the Louis Armstrong Museum, and then also now talk about this migration story there amongst all the other dance that I found through Louis Armstrong's music. So that's been a sweet treat, because it's all connected, so that was a real great return to sender. And then to go back and talk to the family, the Crump family, and this was shot so fast, this came together so fast as I was finding out this history. And the end of the film, that's why I was like, the Joel is the filmmaker, I was like, can we tag this in? Because literally the day that we're sending it in, they're emailing me all these things. It was a long journey to get to the family, and then I found out that one was still alive. They watched, and the daughter of Ronnie actually went to the nursing home the first day that it was screened, and he was blind. He actually got to listen to the film. So that I wasn't ready for. I remember being on Zoom and my camera was on and it should have been off. But my friends reminded me when I saw that in the chat, it's like, "Hi, this is Brenda Crump and Ronnie is with me and we're listening to the film." I would live on camera and cried. And after that, I actually did make a visit to Vancouver and where he was, because he has since passed, and I did get to visit with him. and talk to him and hear these crazy stories about these people he really did meet and dance with. So I say that to say, going back to the Louis Armstrong thing, when I reached out to them and said, hey, I'm at the Louis Armstrong house, it's really wild, and I want to tell them about your dad and your uncle, and I was just getting the story right, and I'd already talked to them and did all this stuff. She's like, you know what, I have a photo, and I was like, oh, damn. And so she sent me a photo of the twins with Louis Armstrong, and so I then had to put that up on the big screen and do homage to them. So that, and then the real recent, well, yeah, Starling was there. I mean, I was able to perform that presentation at the Whitney Museum in January, adjacent to the Alvin Ailey exhibit that they had there.
Yeah.
So that one made me want to pee my pants a little bit. And work with Chicago musicians, Junius Paul and Marquise Hill, which are a huge part of my story, and Chicago is a huge part of that story, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Last thing, just to talk about recent things since then, is me digging deeper into my family migration story. And I've been tracing steps of my father's ancestry, which is also my inherited ancestry in the Caribbean, in Trinidad. I feel like you were on a Zoom one day when I was like, I'm gonna make it to Trinidad one day, and I did, and then I applied for some funding, and I did go back twice, and have been training with drummers there and learning just the richness of that folklore and culture, and it's just been crazy. It's been crazy. So that happened about a month ago. It's been rich, and I made another film after this.
Mark's second showing.
Yeah.
A year from now, another showing, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but all of it's connected. You
It
know,
is connected.
it really is.
It is connected.
Yeah.
And I love that you're pursuing your personal migration story. That is
It just
really
felt like the next
powerful
right
next to this.
thing.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
like this was like learning what ancestry existed where I was born, and now finding a deeper connection to it. And I do get misty every time because I grew up thinking I just want to get the hell out of here. I really did. And I really, you know, there was no Black History Month. I wasn't woke at all. And just, I know what cultural isolation is like. So to go back and then find a whole other connection to that community and just realize, whoa, how much the presence of Black folks, like anywhere else, they pioneered so much. And to think about the colored ball and like all these hundreds of folks were in there in their best Black self in the same places that I grew up, like it just changes things. So I have a deeper love to where I'm from. I now don't hate it. And that, it's just been, so there's that. And then to kind of just understand, of course I would love to make that pilgrimage to Africa and go and really dig in there. But I was like, I can't do that until I go to where I get my, you know, to my family history. So that is it's been really deep. I'm still processing that. But it just felt like the next right thing. That's just the next thing that I wanted to do.
Wow. So this was shot during the pandemic, and all sorts of disruption and chaos across the world, right?
Yeah.
You made this beautiful thing that came from that, and now here we are again in a period of great dismay and chaos and disruption. You've made another film, but what would this film be like if you made it today?
Oh man.
You know more about your family story, you know about your own personal migration, you learn more about the history of Black culture in Edmonton, and you're not connected to Louis Armstrong more than before.
Man.
Would you not be able to make the same movie, I guess?
Yeah, I'm just going like, wow, because I appreciate the depth of your questions. And what's coming to mind is a line in that film is, fuck it, I'm on this path now.
Yeah.
And, sorry.
But not sorry.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry.
No, it just, I look forward to processing what I'm really discovering now, and how much this is a part of it. And all I know is that telling our stories, I know it's so cliche. It's not, but it's not. It's just like, it's what's so important. And what I learned through working in Louis Armstrong's archives, who documented himself too, is just like, listen, the world is insane. And it kind of always has. And
True.
we have the option to say who we are about ourselves. And if we don't take that seriously, it's chaos.
Yeah. But how do you find the through line? I'll tell you, my own family, I have a cousin, my cousin Bonnie, who tells stories about our family that are absolutely not true. But she swears it's that our history, and she's promulgating these errors, right? So how do you find the through line? How do you find your truth? How do you find and know that that thing you've uncovered is complete enough in the absence of records, in the absence of being able to talk to the people who are there? How do you put all that together and know that this is, maybe it's another fuck it, I'm on this path moment, right? How do you do that?
There's two things that come to mind. I think of Diane Walker, and I remember one of the first things that she instilled in all of us, if I think of us gathering in those early days, probably right here in Chicago, just being like, tell us more, tell us more. She always says that there are all many sides to the truth. I'm going to paraphrase, but she instilled really early, I heard her, it's like, people are going to tell you all their stories, and they're going to tell you what happened in their journey, but it's up to you to get as much pieces of that truth as possible and find your own connection to the story. Because otherwise, you're doing injustice by just saying, oh, Michael said this, or your aunt, or baby cousin Bonnie said this, and that's a wrap, and boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
So maybe with all that's happening now, it's like, once again, a reminder that we got to find our own news. Like, all that stuff is really so real. We got to take a look at it all and make a decision for ourselves. So I just always remembered that it was like, and we can idolize folks, especially in what you're passionate about. I mean, I could say so many names in our tap community that we all know here, and it's like, as much as we love these people, and same with me, like, whatever I say, I tell all my students, I'll tell you this based on how I understand it, or when I was there talking to this is what happened, but you might have to go and read those books yourselves and make up a decision for yourself and fact check my behind, But the other thing I wanted to say, though, is in the gift of going towards, destiny is a big word, but the gift of going towards truth, the gift of taking that journey, that leap of faith towards the unknown. Like for example, I had to grieve not going to Trinidad with my father and move past that. But what has happened is, I can't write the story, but I have gone and indirectly have met all these people who knew my father, and indirectly have been brought to where my father grew up. And all that time that I thought I will never know, something is like, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah.
So I know it's whatever you want to call it, but we're being guided, and I think we're being guided by the truth.
And you're being propelled by your own curiosity.
1000%.
Yeah.
And that's a personal journey for everybody. That's just how it's unfolded for me. So I was like, well, I know I'm supposed to do this. It's very clear,
So one of the things that impressed me about the film, which I've seen many times, and the first
Thank
time
you.
I watched it, I was on the train myself. And the parallels between trains passing by me and trains passing by you, I thought, whoa, this is something speaking to me here. But you are at the nexus of race, ancestry, place, policy, individual choice. I see that suffused throughout everything you've done, and as well as who came before and who's going to be there next, right?
Right.
And you have a duality about everything here. Teacher student, Canada US, Alberta, New York City, someone in motion, someone settled. And you said, and I love this line, frankly speaking, where the hell am I now and how do I belong? So there's that other duality.
Mm-hmm.
How have these questions that you posed these years back been answered, if at all, or does that duality deepen for you? Have they been answered, or they continue to be stronger questions?
I think they've become stronger questions, and I think like the answer becomes more solid within. This has been like a fast track to you gonna have to look at yourself, just period, the end. Like, what are you feeling? What are you processing? You know, because in all of this, as this was happening, and it kind of speaks to the urgency. I mean, I put on there, this was shot, that last scene was shot just days after we really uncovered the truth about those indigenous families and children. It's heart-wrenching. So, and it was a barren land because no one was allowed to travel. So as we were driving to these mountain ranges from where we are, it was just all down the highway were pillars of stuffed animals and just love notes saying, you know, don't forget about our children. So it was like, there were a lot of tears when it was like, oh my God. And also during this time, I'm coming back, like I was saying, I meant what I said in the film. Like it was traumatic to go back where I thought I'd be comforted by family. You know, I know it's a common story now, but it's like confronted by, whoa, I didn't know some of my family had politics that they had. And here I am, single mother with my child, raising a black son, not knowing where to scream and yell and find support. And so I found, you know, independence. I rented my own home, which is where I was dancing at the time. And then went for a walk, and like 5 houses down, some idiot put up a Confederate flag in their window. And I'm seeing the same things that I would see in Virginia years ago. I'd be like, oh my God, like, where am I? Like, for real, where am I? And like that rage of like, get me out of here, or the fear of putting up a fist in my window for Black Lives Matter at that time. I was scared to do that because I didn't want people to like, and here I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell? So my response to that was, let me put a heart on my door and just put out love, you know? And just let me focus on my child and close the doors. And how am I doing?
And how did that work? Did it do for you what you needed?
It did, because it made me choose me.
Mm.
It made me say, this is what matters to me right now. When I would find Empoy and Cheryl, I was like,
Yeah.
you know, when I was able to FaceTime with my friends and stuff, when I was able to be in my basement relearning the chair dance with Reggio, you know, I was like, oh, this is my family. This is me. This is where love is for me, and that's what I care about. So, you know, that sense of belonging, it's a trip. It's a trip, because then I'm going to say it like this. As Black folks, it's a crazy story. So there is despair, there's pain, there's frustration. I mean, I'm reading a book called A Map to the Door of No Return. And it's real, like you're leaving paradise to go to hell. You go into hell, you try to find paradise, you're trying to figure out who you are, but that part is unavoidable. At some point you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it. Whether you speak on it or not, you just feel it. And for me, I really felt it going back home. You know, I'm like, I'm home, but I feel crazy and like and then you just, I just go through like, but I know who my people are. And the notion of gathering and being kind and just figuring out these things together. So learning about these stories frees me up a little bit, and then also has me trust that, like, people have gone through so much, and just by me dancing right now, like, I'm so privileged, you know, to just dance freely and just have a good time and go to a tech jam and, like, play my favorite tune and nobody can tell me what to do. Like, that is so freeing, and, like, freedom is so new, really, you know? So then it makes that much sweeter. So the sense of belonging is just like where I find joy, where I'm just like right here. I feel like I belong right here, right now, you know? So that radar has been sharpened. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. We talked about that, though, the saying that I brought to you, which was grow where you're planted.
Yes.
And I think that's
Yeah.
what you do exceptionally well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the scene in your basement at your rented house where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, this is the path I'm on.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. And I remember a great mentor just telling me, like, I was like, feeling down in the dumps, and I had all my stuff and I had my boxes, and they just said, you know, go ahead and put those up on your wall right now, do it
Yeah.
today. And I was
Yeah.
like, you're right. And then when I just had those people up there and some great memories, I was like, okay, all right,
Your dance ancestors.
I'll be all right. Yeah,
As employee said. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah, which I love.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
You exude resilience
Oh,
to me.
well,
Something I saw up in the film and
you.
something sitting here with you right now. And I think it's a dancer thing. I think we're always challenged with not being able to do something that we want to do, or an opportunity that comes and we have to work it through. But talk to me about that thing that I think you possess, about resilience. Do you feel that way about yourself?
Maybe when I look back, sometimes in the moment it's wild and it sucks. It's hard. I mean, anybody who knows me knows I say this a lot, but I think gratitude gets me there,
Mhm.
because I just sometimes, like today, feels so humbling. So I'm like, just be grateful and realize you did something, you know, or you did something for people that thought that their story would never get told,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and to see, the first thing I did when I walked into this room was took a picture and sent it to the Crump family. And they sent me a little love note saying thank you.
That's
But
really
I'm like,
sweet.
just so you
Yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
know, because this wouldn't have been made if it wasn't for them.
Yeah,
You know?
Yeah, that was the lock, the key in the lock that opened it all up, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah. Well, and let me tell you, speaking of, it's like, you know, all I heard was that sentence, oh, Lisa, because yes, I'm from Calgary, but now it's clear I was born in Edmonton, and which is 3 hours north of Calgary, and I moved to Calgary when I was 6, so I really grew up and started dancing there, etc. So when Employee came to me, it was just like, oh, Lisa, so like tell us about the Crump twins, these African Americans born in Edmonton who danced with Louis Armstrong. I was like, wash your mouth, like what are you talking about? This is like not a sentence. So that was enough for me to be like, what the? So going down those rabbit holes of just trying to find out, there's very little. But just really recently, somebody was doing a documentary about Hogan's Alley, which is that area in Vancouver that is now demolished. And but in there, they interviewed the Crump twins themselves while they were both still alive, and that's when they talked about Louis Armstrong and stuff. And I was like, whoa! And it took a while to finally get to them. So all I had was that thread: them, Black community. I didn't know where they were from or anything, right? So I knew they were born in Edmonton, that's it. So then when it's like, you should talk to this person, you should talk to that person, it was months, like really months. And someone said, you know who really knows a lot about Black history in Calgary is this woman named Cheryl Fogo. And I was like, oh, okay, well, can I get an email? And then again, that took months for her to respond. We were in the pandemic, everybody was in crisis, you know? So she responded maybe about 2 weeks before I was shooting that scene. Because there's a story behind that scene, the dance scene. All I wanted to do was just shoot something in the mountains. That's what I wanted to do. I had no idea I was making a documentary. I had no idea I'd be talking about these people. And so once I found out about the Crump twins, I was like, well, let me dedicate it to them. And then, okay, let me find out a little bit more about their story. Cheryl responds, I have the dates listed as to the shooting dates. Okay, we're going to shoot this here. We're going to record this audio here. I'm writing a little bit of my script. And then interviewed Empoy already. That was great. And then Cheryl answers, and I was like, by chance would I be able to interview you? She's like, yes, but I can't do anything in person right now. I was like, okay, Zoom. Like, you know, that was a Zoom recording. And that was not even a week before we shot the last scene, and not even 10 days before we had to send the whole film in.
Oh, goodness.
That is not a lot of time. And I've never made a film. Now that I talk to filmmakers, they're like, what the hell? But I will never forget that day. I was in my basement and I was like, okay, this is the last interview. I'll just get a cute little thing. And she's just like, yes, this is the Crump twins and they're part of this migration. I was like, what migration? And she told me that history. And then she said Black Wall Street in Tulsa. And I was like, so I asked her all this stuff. I was like, hi, Cheryl. And I was, again, jaw dropping and also feeling crazy that I knew none of this. And she had to then say, like, Lisa, not many people know that in Calgary. So, you know, I felt like I was disrespecting her because I didn't know. And she was we call her now Auntie Cheryl. She was very Auntie Cheryl. And she was just like, no, I'm just really honored to meet somebody, another Black woman that wants to learn this history. So anyway, she told me that history, and I finished that interview, and Joel is the cinematographer and the co-director. And I shut my computer down, and I had about 30 minutes to go pick up my child from daycare. And I just called him. I said, Joel, just pause. I said, I need a minute. We're making a documentary. I have to rewrite everything. And I just found out this history. Can I call you back tomorrow? He's like, okay. And I got my kid, I put him to bed, and I stayed up till like 4 a.m. and rewrote everything. And it was just like, we need to insert this. And then we shot that thing, and then he was just like this like bronze statue in front of his computer for like 3 days. And also, I mean, I was really a single mother at that time. Like I was by myself in Calgary, so with a toddler. I was exhausted.
Yes.
So I would come home and I finished writing. I'm like on no sleep trying to get through these days. And I just sent Joel, like, here, I want this first, that first, that first. Here's my thing. I did all the overdubs. I did all the things. And I was like, you should probably take this. He's like, okay, just give me a couple of days and I'll see what I can do. I didn't know it was going to be done. He came up with, I gave him some music or whatnot, but 2 days later, he's like, okay, let me know what you think. And I just wept. I was like, he is the storyteller as well, you know? So it was just, I was meant to work with him. This story just was like, dear Lisa, we're just going to tell this through you.
Yeah.
Roll camera, go change your kid's diaper, and we'll get back to you in the morning.
And wash your hands.
Yes. And so it really was just like this thing that came. And then when, again, we aired it, and then the family was there, and they started meeting the family some more, I was like, okay, I surrender. This is just going to have its own trajectory on its own. And then someone was like, you have a film now. What are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. So anyway, I've just been rolling with the hints along the way.
In addition to resilience, I sense gratitude.
A lot of gratitude.
You, a lot. And I know I'm going to switch this a little bit. Because we're here in Chicago.
Yes.
And the Chicago Dance History Project is recording. We want to
Yes.
know, because I know you hold a lot of gratitude for the folks in the Chicago dance tap community that you've worked with. So let's dive into that a little bit. Tell me about your, I don't even know how long you were in Chicago. 5 weeks? 10 years?
Okay, well, I gotta just have a moment for Miss Audrey Barrett, and Brill Barrett. So we just lost Audrey Barrett last night.
Man.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Brill Barrett. He would be here right now. He was on his way here. I saw him yesterday. So I just hold a lot of space in my heart for him and Star and J-Bo right now, because Mama Audrey was a part of the team, you know. So that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Brill and my relationship to Mad Rhythms. So what started, and Brill came through Calgary. Okay. You want the story?
Yes, we want the story. We want the
It's a
story.
story. Okay,
Yes,
I gotta
yes,
go
yes,
from
yes.
the beginning. So I'm in Calgary. Oh man, I just love him a lot. And he's got all my receipts. He's got all my receipts. He'll tell you so much about me, and I could hear his laugh already. But I was a teenager, and he was on tour with Riverdance. And he came through, and he has this hilarious story about, because Brill's a hustler. Y'all know about Brill?
Yeah.
Brill, big boss Brill. So he was on tour with Riverdance, and he would go through the phone books at the time, and because those were thing in the 90s, y'all, and flip through. What he would do is he would call. I'm just telling the whole thing. Brill, I love you. He said, so if he was in Edmonton, and the next spot was Calgary, he would call in advance to get the Calgary phone book mailed to the Edmonton, right, the Edmonton hotel he was staying at, and then he would go through the Calgary phone book and find out the list of dance studios that would want a workshop while he's in town, because he's big boss Brill. So he ended up at one of the studios that I was connected to, and he did a workshop when he was in town in Calgary. I was just a teenager, and I just remember being like, who's this guy? This workshop was so fun. And he called me and these two other women the Rhythm Queens. And still to this day, he's like, yeah, y'all were the Rhythm Queens. And so I just kind of like knew who he was and kind of left it alone. Thought he was cool. He was just a famous dancer that came through town. And then a couple years later, one of my first mentors is actually Sean Cheeseman. And Sean Cheeseman is, I will say this very carefully, like a street jazz dancer, because he was in the Bad music video with Michael Jackson. He choreographed the music video Scream with Michael and Janet Jackson. So I gotta put my Janet Jackson outfit on. And he was from Calgary, and his parents were Trinidadian, and he grew up in the same neighborhood that I happen to be living in. So I didn't know who he was at all. Same thing. He comes and does this workshop in Calgary, and I'm telling you the story because it makes sense. I promise. But he does this workshop in Calgary, and we're all like, this guy worked with Michael Jackson, because if you lived through the 90s, that was like, what? And he just spoke my language. I learned various styles of dance. Shout out going to Joel Hall with my boy Reggio. I'll be training in these other genres.
Yeah.
Got no more though. And he would always, I just loved how he moved, and he would always teach by scatting. He'd be like, and I was like, yo. So anyway, found the love with Sean. Sean was spending time in Calgary, and he at the same time was flying to Germany back and forth, doing these big workshops in Germany, where Brill was with Trey, working on Riverdance. So Sean came back to Calgary and was like, yo, you ever heard of Mad Rhythms? I was like, no. And this was early 2000s, and he was just like, I just first time in my life, went to a jazz club in Stuttgart, Germany, and saw these guys dance to live music, and blew my mind, and I think I want to bring them for a big workshop in Calgary. And I was like, lit, cool. I didn't say that then, because he didn't say that then. And anyway, so Sean brought Brill. And then I remembered Brill, and then it became like he was there for a week, and it was like, boom. I always wanted to spend time in New York, but I was like, yo, this guy is dancing to literally every song that I've been playing in my Honda Civic, like improvising to SWV, we were dancing to Missy Elliott, all this stuff, and I was just like, this is my shit. So he just being Brill was just like, I saw that he just poured into me, he saw the light in me. From there, I remember where we were sitting in Calgary, where I was like telling him, okay, well, I've been thinking I was saving money to go spend some time in New York and stuff, and I was teaching all over Calgary at the time, and I had a lot of dancers, advanced dancers at the time anyway, that, you know, they're looking for things to do more than dance competition. So I was like, oh, I should do something, and he's just like, you should start Mad Rhythms Canada. And that happened. And I was like, just the fact that I would carry that name and all this stuff. So there was a logo. I had a little skirt. There's the Canadian flag. Like, I still have it. Nora's putting it in the documentary. But so I started Mad Rhythms Canada, and then it became this journey of bringing him and Trey, and then Jamani. I'm the reason why Jamani got his first passport. Jamani came to Calgary, and Jamani was 18 at the time, and because Bro kept talking about them. So anyway, I figured out I was 22. What was I doing? Like, with a youth ensemble and trying to make a festival happen. And so we made the Calgary Tap Summit, actually, which was right before the Chicago Tap Summit. So I helped Brill kind of with that infrastructure in the beginning. And brought over Jenny Lagon, because Jenny Lagon was living in Vancouver. I brought over George Patterson, Brill, and Trey. Brill and Trey would come back and forth to Calgary and set ography, so we learned Glorious. And that's where I first started choreographing Love Me or Leave Me, and all this history was happening before I even came to Chicago. So I was having this Chicago connection. And then finally, Brill was like, all right, I'm bringing the company to St. Louis. Let's bring Mad Rhythms Canada to St. Louis. That was 2004. And so sold all the things, like had fundraised. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just figured it out. I had parents that were helping me. And we brought the crew to St. Louis that 2004 with Danny Nielsen and all these people. And we danced Oye Como Va, and that's when Jimmy Slide was there. And that's just, we just fell in love. We were just like, whoa. So I did that for 2 years. I brought the crew there twice, 2004, 2005. Then this like thing was busting at the seams, and I was, again, I'm 22 now, 23, producing this festival, crying every night because I'm like, that is hard and exhausting, and think I'm gonna lose every last dollar I never had, and oh my God, so stressful. And by the end of that, it was beautiful. Everything was so great, but I was like, I really just want to train. So I was just starting to come to Chicago a little bit. I remember going to St. Louis in 2004, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and the first time I pulled up to Chicago, finally I'm like, okay, there was no room in Brill's truck, because Brill brought everybody and they mama in his SUV, and there was no more room in that truck. So I was like, everyone's like, how are we going to get Lisa to Chicago? George was there, George Patterson. So I rolled from St. Louis to Chicago in the summer of 2004 with George Patterson. George got lost, had to use a payphone. I figured it's the whole thing. I'll never forget it. So that was my love for George, right, from the beginning. And then when I came to Chicago and then started coming to the Mad Rhythms rehearsals and everything, I was like, this is it. Like, this is raw. I was getting starved, like 14, 15 next to me, just cutting me. And me just like trying to felt like a kid never learned how to swim, just trying to find the one. And I was like, this is it. This is the culture. This is the grit, So I just wanted to be here more. And as I was like starting to produce more, I was like, I'm too young for this. I told myself that. And I just said, I just want to be there. So Brill, I owe him so much, because he ended up being the sponsor for my first visa. So he sponsored me to come to the U.S., period, because of Brill. And that was 2006. And those times, I just came at a golden time, because that's when Imagine Tap. I moved the summer of Imagine Tap. And so Jason it's Derek Grant's show. So Jason Samuel Smith, Ideli Cassell, Dora Misha, Chloe. That's when Jared Grimes and Michelle Dorrance were in the ensemble, and like all these rock stars were here in Chicago at the Harris Theater. I'm in my little apartment in Hyde Park trying to figure out how to cash a check. He pulls up Reggio McLaughlin and be like, come here, girl, let me help you. And he like, all of a sudden I just found community here real quick. And kind of the rest is history. So that, I ended up paying rent here from 2006 to 2008 for 2 years. But it was since 2004 that I was making my treks here to Chicago. And then I would come back a lot working with Lane and the Chicago Human Rhythm Project. And I just I cut my teeth here. This is where I just I wouldn't be the dancer that I am if I didn't have Chicago. I wouldn't have met the people that I met. I wouldn't have had the confidence I had if I wasn't from Chicago, just getting cut in those ciphers, because you already know, Sterling, you gotta have my back, bro. 2 hours of improv circles, even if you didn't finish, even if Trey didn't finish Glorious and we were supposed to be on stage the next day, we still didn't finish that piece till we did our rounds. 2 hours. And it was just where we sweat together, where we cry together, where there's a story where I threw a chair across the room because I was so mad one day. Yes, I know it's on tape. But we really, we push each other to the edges, and then y'all know the story. I mean, the company split up in 2007. I started working with Trey. We were in Just Listen together. It was me, Trey, Nico, Jessica Chapuis. So we went from one renegade crew to another renegade crew, and then just, we went over to China and performed in China. So when I was able to send some of my choreography over there, and I really performed at Navy Pier a bunch, and all this stuff was really going. And I was training at Joel Hall's in the morning, and Joel Hall said, come here, girl, and he'd show you how to lift your leg, and I didn't even know I could lift my leg. And Reggio, we were jazz walking, come on, you already know. Reggio brought me to Joel Hall, yo. So I will just never forget. And for a small period of time, quiet as it's kept, because it never really manifested into anything, but I was training as an apprentice for the Joel Hall dancers, and I was learning a little bit. He was teaching me some choreography. And I just remember one time going to Dance Chicago, and I think I was performing with Just Listen then, and Joel Hall dancers came backstage. They're like, you tap dance? I was like, oh, yo, I gotta fix that. I was like, yes. So anyway, I just, Chicago was everything. And also is where, Jamani went through the Chicago Reader to find out where these jam sessions were. And that's when I started going to the Velvet Lounge. That's where I met Junius Paul, Micaiah McCraven, Corey Wilkes, Charles Rick Heath, Marquise Hill. That's I first met Robert Glasper here when he had no Grammys, and just coming in, be on tour with whoever he was, and just meeting these folks. We were all just learning tunes together. We went to the New Apartment Lounge in the south side of Chicago. So there's just a time where it was that's where I first learned to be in a jam session and be working with these musicians. And the New Apartment Lounge, Fred Anderson, was the Velvet Lounge, may he rest in power. And it was, why am I blanking right now? Vaughn Freeman, the saxophone player. He hosted those jam sessions every Tuesday night in the south side at the New Apartment Lounge at 2 a.m. That's when the session started. So I take my little nap, and then I go on down with my board, and it was in a little grimy area, so a lot of the fellas would make sure they came when I was, let me know when you arrive, we'll walk you with your board and bring it in. And I remember going to the back, you gotta know what the bar looked like. It was like, you know, like just, it looked like it was made straight from the 70s. Like, I can just smell what the place looked like. And there's this big brass bar and this like semicircle kind of a bar, and the front was right here where the band was playing, and all the way around the back of the bar was where Vaughn would sit. And he had this eye thing going on, so he always had these dark shades on. You'd only listen. And so you go back and you pay your respects. And so I think it was myself and Giovanni was there at the time, and I went back and was like, sir, it's so great to meet you. And he would always rub inside here, so he'd rub your hand like this. And he pulled me in close, and he was just like, you remind me of my dear friend, Baby Lawrence. And I was like, and I will never forget, because I was like, just like you all, like, wow. And then he started crying. He's like, you know him? You knew who he was? He's like, I never thought anybody would know who he was. So then he had that moment. So I brought him the album that Baby made, and I made a VHS tape, and I showed him the documentary that was made, and he was just like, I had no idea my friend was like notched in history. And he just told stories about how badass he was and all this stuff. So anyway, it was like, that was in those 2 years, sure, but that was a lifetime. Like, Chicago was a lifetime, you know. I'm still, some of my closest friends in the dance are from here. I still talk to Nico all the time. I'm still dear friends with Trey, you know. Brill family, for real. Star, you know. Those are people I call when I'm going through times, more than my friends in New York. And then talk about pulling it full circle, just recently being in the Louis Armstrong project and learning, knowing Louis Armstrong's migration from New Orleans to Chicago, and being Chicago where he first started recording, where he really became famous was here first before he moved to New York. It's like what Chicago was for him in a very different way. And, you know, mine's like this compared to him, but it's like, that was a big staple in my life. And then learning that he was playing with a lot of tap dancers here that shaped his sound, and I can go into all that, I won't. I was like, if I'm gonna come into his space and create some new music and, you know, collaborate with musicians, there's no way I'm doing this without Chicago musicians. So then I called up my friend Junius, and I called up my friend Marquise Hill, and I said, would you all do this? And so that is how I then brought them. Well, Marquise has been living in New York, but brought Junius to New York, and we just worked, and we just unpacked all this stuff together, which has just been amazing. And after not playing with them for like over 10 years, it was like as soon as we got together, it was like being with my high school buddies. Or like, oh shit, yeah, come on, how you doing, girl? Boom, 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 boom. Like, it was just like family all over again. So that's a feeling that I have a lot of friends in New York. In New York, I've been there for so many years, but it's just like, there's just something about when you were, especially when you're figuring it out for the first time with, it's like your high school friends and your college friends or whatever. So
where on that path did you start your relationship with Chicago Tap Theater?
Oh man, immediately. Gosh, I don't know if I remember the first day. I think we've talked about this. Like, I just knew we were kindred spirits pretty fast. Some festival, pretty quick when I got here. It's like, hi, what's you playing in your room? And I don't know, we just kind of found each other, and I felt like we had coffee together quite a bit pretty early on. And when I was really living here, because I probably met you before I moved here, I think so. And when I was living here, again, it's like Reggio, just one of these kind people doing big things. Hey Lisa, how are you doing? Oh, come check this out. Come, this is who we are. And that was really in some of the earlier years of Chicago Tap Theater. So me kind of understanding what you were doing, and coming from Kansas City, and we would just often end up just nerding out about jazz. It just kind of always ended up there, and sharing a few tunes together over time. And then fast forward to me just moving to New York, you were starting to come bring the company to New York some more. And so I was able to see the company kind of spread its wing. I still remember this one theater y'all were performing at in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
So just like, it's just been immediate
Just
and
been there.
ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we've taught so many times, we went on the road together all the time. Yeah. You know how we do.
Remember we performed in the jail?
Yes.
You performed in the jail.
In the correctional center in Anderson, I got Lisa and me,
Mac.
the singer.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
was
we
in like
down
Joliet, wasn't
in
it?
the jail, huh?
Was it Joliet?
Sounds about right.
It was at
In-
Andersonville,
Oh.
Anderson Correctional Center or something.
Yeah.
Mm.
And they asked me to perform, and I put a posse, and it was snowing like hell
I
at first.
remember, yeah.
We went down there, man.
Mhm.
So you know who got all the claps, right? Lisa with all the guys.
What an amazing
Receipts. Yeah.
Amazing. I love just how intertwined everything was, and I sense that about you in the film, right?
Mhm.
That there are these threads, these tendrils, these roots that are always moving with you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just to hear these stories about your migration to Chicago and through and back and through and back. It's just
Right.
really extraordinary. I'd like to
Yeah.
open it up for some questions.
I'm here for it.
All right,
Yeah.
Regia.
The thing is, like, now that when I watch the movie and you make the movie, what do you want people to get out of it once they see the movie? What would be your message? Say, this is what I want them to get out of it.
Thank you for that question. What's your story? You
Huh?
know, I want them to I want to find out what their story is and how they find nuggets along their journey,
Okay.
you know? Um,
Inspire.
yeah,
Inspiring to
yeah,
people to do what you did.
yeah, because
Something like
there's
that.
so much history right under our feet when you least expect it, no matter
Yeah,
where we
yeah.
are. And I think that was the biggest thing, and which is why I told the story the way it was, is like, and why I was a shock to go back to a place where a lot of that history is not there. Chicago knows its history, you know?
Sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm around a lot of people that know a lot of Chicago history, or at least like some of the foremothers and fathers that have been a part of the legacies that we're a part of. I mean, you know, and like I was just depicting in New York, I mean, you walk everywhere, there's a plaque. This is what was here, this is who was there, you know, walk by the Apollo Theater all the time. It's like those things are just there. So then when going into like, it feels just like a barren land. I'm like, whoa, but then to find out that all that history is there too, because these are people, just people that pass through, and we're all passing through. We're coming from these different places, you know, all trying to belong, all trying to find a better life, all trying to find a sense of purpose. And
Why the hell am I here?
yeah, exactly. But they found a way, and like, you know, since this film has been made, the three of us women have continued to band together and research. And you know, the second film that just came out recently was, whatever. We went to one of the original settlements. We took it a step further and actually went to the land that these people came to, and I got to sit with one of the last living descendants in this town that is of 500 people. This is, you know, when they got their 160 acres of land, it really was like, they talk about it as like, it was like a bet with the Canadian government. They wouldn't get their land title for 3 years. They had to check off all these boxes and pretty much do the government's work. They had to cut down the trees, get ready to pave the roads. They had to like actually build a house with their own bare hands. They had to figure all this stuff out on their own. And if they've checked off all these boxes after 3 years, finally the government will give them the title of the land. It's really wild. So when I asked one of the last living descendants of that land, He was coming from Oklahoma in 1910, like into the winter, like the winter. And one of the settlements is supposedly the northernmost black settlements in all the world. And so it's like you talk about the threads of the diaspora, And I just remember asking that very same question to him, Reggio. I just said his name was Van Hayes. He's no longer with us. And I said, "What do you want the people to know?" And he's like, he put his big mug down and he just said that we black folks came into the bush and we made a way. I was like, okay. And it's just amazing. And they did. And they found joy. And they played music. And inside this little tiny museum in the middle of nowhere, there's all these photos of bands that they put together. And, these beautiful men and women in their Sunday best. And like black folks, like, wow, I had no idea that this was here and that they carved out this land. They were pioneers, Yeah. So I guess it's just, we all have a connection to what's underneath us. Sometimes just dig a little bit,
Pay attention.
Or tell your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, please.
What has being in a Shuffle Along added to your story?
Y'all asking me these questions. Well, that is in a very, I was talking about earlier about like, it's like there's like fairy dust or something. Like, I really feel these ancestors have like puppet strings or something, because that was my real first experience embodying a black history in a show, and that happened to be on Broadway, so I didn't know I was like, oh, one day I want to be on Broadway. Or now that you get the Broadway credit, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you were on Broadway. I was like, yes, but this is what I was doing on Broadway. I had to embody those chorus women from the 1920s that changed the game. The first time that these women were shuffling on stage, and the first time that there was a sound of jazz music on stage. And these pioneers that paved the way in theater. That was my job, just casually with George C. Wolfe and Savion Glover in the creative team, and Audra McDonald as the star, and Billy Porter as just one. It just was like, what? So imposter syndrome I had to let go of fast, because I really was like, I'm just a little girl from Calgary, like, what am I doing here? And then kind of went, wow, okay, I've been chosen to be a part of telling this story. And that shifted for me. And that, to me, it was like getting a master's degree in black theater while embodying it. Because the vaults, like the research that we had to do and the things that we uncovered, because no one knew. I will never forget the day when George Wolfe came into the room, because I was there from the very first rehearsals. Me and Carissa Royster were the two that were there from the beginning to the end. And I remember George Wolfe coming into the room and saying, because I was invited into this untitled project with Savion Glover and George Wolfe, who hadn't been together since Noise Funk. So I was like, what? So I'm walking to the room to just open, and George comes in and he's just like, I don't know, and he talks with his hands and he's like, I would do something around Shuffle Along. Does anybody ever heard of Shuffle Along? And all of us were like, no. Even Audra was like, once she was in there, never heard of the history. Billy Porter never heard of the history. So I embodied that history while watching that history come back into the fold. And that was because that was George Wolfe's vision. And since then, there's all these books that are being made, and there's like, it's in the vault again. So I was a part of that. And I think that has just stuck with me, because we knew, and George set the tone, like, we're here because of them. He said that every day. So when show business kicked its rear end, we just saw how these producers, it's got a fast track into showbiz, and it can be gully, it's grimy. Mm-hmm. And no matter what, George was like, we're here because of them. And that hasn't left me, So I think it's given me more agency, and I'm sure shifted me
Don't you think, though, that experience gave you the wherewithal to dig into
Yeah.
what was not yet told or not yet discovered to create this?
Totally.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
I know how to do this.
we're gonna do
I've got the
this.
calluses, I can do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And just find how much joy you
Yeah.
get out of it. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any hands? Well, I want to thank you. This has been extraordinary. Anything you would like to add that we have not spoken of?
I talked a lot.
That's what we wanted.
Just thank you, like just truly thank you. I will say that yeah, I have a mentor that has gifted me this thing recently, which is just knowing that all of this is behind me and knowing who I am is enough. And because it can feel overwhelming, it can feel like, what do you do with all this information? And I remember, I think over a drink, just talking to him recently, just saying, how do you do it? Just watch this person do all that he does. How do you do it? And him just saying, like, I'll paraphrase a little bit, but just saying, like, just by me pursuing what I want to do, or just by you all pursuing what you want to do, you're taking care of all that.
Mm. Mm.
It was just the notion of being present and being aware of what has come behind you. They're there.
Yeah.
They're there. So it's like the best thing that we can do to carry them forward is to literally live our truth, and explaining that over and over again is like, just let it live. So I feel like part of me is just like, just let this kind of be its thing. I'm going to continue going towards the things that I'm curious about, because that's doing that justice.
Yeah.
You know, and the way that the way that was said to me really freed me in the moment, because I could feel like, well, I could just live the rest of my life being like, do you know about the Cromptons? Do you know about what Louis Armstrong did? Do you know, and just, do you know about Chef Long? And just be that person. But then I lose me. You know what I mean? And now all that is a part of me. It's going to come out no matter what. And so I feel like that's just the last thing I want to leave, is just the gift of being able to share this with you all, and just the notion that going towards the unknown and just going towards that joy is just the next best ticket, you know?
Yeah.
And Chicago is a part of that story for me, hands down. Harold's Chicken and all.
What a great way to end. Thank you, Chicago Cat Theater. Mark, again, thank you.